Hello, Heartland fans. First of all, a warm welcome to my YouTube audience. I'm so glad you're here. If you're a fan of emotional roller coasters, tangled love stories, and characters who feel like family, then you're in the right place. Today, we're diving into a moment that no Heartland fan saw coming, a moment that will leave you breathless, questioning loyalties, and maybe even reaching for the tissues. Picture this: Amy Fleming finally finding her footing after years of heartache, only to have her world turned upside down by the return of the one man she never expected to see again, T. Borden. But this isn't a happy reunion. It's a storm that threatens to tear apart everything she's built. And trust me, this is just the beginning. So, if you're ready for a story filled with love, betrayal, and impossible choices, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because you do not want to miss what happens next. Let's get into it. No one could have predicted this moment. Just when Amy Fleming believed she had finally found peace, her world was shattered by the return of the man she once loved more than anything, T. Borden. But this wasn't the fairy tale reunion she might have dreamed of. It was a storm that threatened to unravel everything she had built. Lindy, now old enough to understand, watches as her mother faces an impossible choice: follow her heart or protect the life she created without him. And as if the situation weren't complicated enough, there's Nathan, a man who has stood by Amy's side, offering her a love she never thought she'd feel again. But with Ty's return, his presence casts a long shadow over their fragile connection. Then there's Caleb, who has always been like a brother to Ty. But can he forgive the man who left them all behind? Or will this be the ultimate betrayal? The moment Ty steps back onto Heartland, time seems to freeze. The ranch, once a place of healing and second chances, suddenly becomes a battlefield of emotions. Amy sees him, but it doesn't feel real. It can't be real. The man she mourned, the man she forced herself to let go of, is standing right in front of her. His eyes tell a story of pain, regret, and something darker, secrets buried so deep that speaking them aloud might break him. Lindy clutches Amy's hand, confused but curious. She's heard stories about her father, seen pictures, and felt his presence in the way her mother talked about him. But standing here, flesh and blood, he's just a stranger to her. Ty kneels, trying to find the right words, but the silence is suffocating. How do you make up for years of absence? How do you explain the unexplainable? Jack, ever the protector, steps forward, his voice calm but firm. "You've got a lot of explaining to do, son." But Ty's gaze never leaves Amy, because, in the end, she's the one he came back for, and she's the one who might never forgive him. Nathan watches from a distance, his heart pounding in his chest. He knew this moment would come, but he never thought it would happen like this. He thought he had time to show Amy that love doesn't have to come with heartbreak, time to prove that he could be the man she and Lindy needed. But now, Ty's return threatens to undo everything. Amy's heart may still belong to the past, and Nathan isn't sure if he's strong enough to fight for a love that was never truly his. Caleb, the brother, the best friend, the one left behind to pick up the pieces when Ty disappeared, struggles with his own emotions. He loved Ty like family, but that doesn't mean he's ready to welcome him back with open arms. Forgiveness isn't just about words, it's about trust. And after everything that happened, can Caleb ever trust T again? The weight of the moment hangs heavy over Heartland. The past and present collide in a way no one was prepared for. As the sun sets over the ranch, one thing becomes clear. This isn't just a homecoming. It's the beginning of a war, fought not with fists, but with love, regret, and the choices that will define them all. The silence between Amy and Ty is deafening. They stand in the barn, the same place where their love story began, but now it feels like a battlefield. Amy's heart pounds in her chest, torn between anger and the overwhelming emotions she tried to bury. She searches his face for answers, but Ty only looks at her with sorrow so deep it threatens to pull her under. "How could you?" Her voice is barely above a whisper, but it carries years of pain, betrayal, and longing. Ty exhales, his hands shaking at his sides. "I had no choice, Amy. If I could have," but she interrupts, her voice cracking. "You did have a choice. You chose to leave. You chose to let me think you were never coming back." The weight of her words crashes over him like a tidal wave. He knew this wouldn't be easy, but nothing could have prepared him for the raw hurt in her eyes. He tries to explain, to tell her about the danger, the reasons he stayed away, the forces that kept him from coming home. But the words die on his lips because, deep down, he knows the truth. Nothing will ever justify the years he lost with her and Lindy. Outside, Nathan watches from the shadows, his jaw clenched. He has always been patient with Amy, never pushing her before she was ready. But now, with Ty back, patience feels like a fool's game. He steps forward, his voice calm but firm. "Amy, are you okay?" Ty turns sharply at the sound of his voice. "And who are you?" Nathan doesn't hesitate. "Someone who was here when you weren't." The air turns ice cold between them, and Amy feels the tension crackle like a wildfire. This is the confrontation she's been dreading, the past and present colliding in a way that could leave everyone in ruins. Jack steps between them, his voice like thunder. "That's enough." He looks at Ty, his expression unreadable. "If you came back to start a fight, you might as well leave now." But Ty shakes his head. "I didn't come back to fight. I came back for my family." And just like that, Amy's world tilts on its axis again. Family. It was a word she had to redefine without him, a word that now feels foreign coming from his lips. But he isn't the only one seeking redemption. Across the ranch, Caleb struggles with his own demons. He was there for Amy, for Lindy, for the family T left behind. And now, all of it feels like it was for nothing. He watches from afar, his emotions swirling into something unrecognizable: resentment, betrayal, maybe even jealousy. He isn't sure, but one thing is clear: things will never be the same between him and Ty again. The night settles over Heartland, but there is no peace, only unanswered questions, broken hearts, and the terrifying realization that Ty's return isn't the end of the storm. It's only the beginning. Amy doesn't sleep that night. She lies in bed, staring at the ceiling, her mind racing with memories that won't stop haunting her: the warmth of Ty's arms around her on cold nights, the sound of his laughter when Lindy took her first steps, the way his presence always made her feel safe. But that's just it. He hasn't been there. And now, when she's finally started to rebuild a life without him, he's back. Expecting what? Forgiveness? A second chance? She doesn't know if she has anything left to give. Downstairs, Jack sits at the kitchen table, his coffee untouched. The weight of the past few hours sits heavy on his chest. He's seen a lot in his life: loss, betrayal, second chances that never quite turned out the way people hoped. He looks out the window at the dark horizon, his mind clouded with thoughts of Ty, the boy he raised like a son, the man who swore to love Amy forever, the same man who vanished without a trace. Jack doesn't know what to believe anymore. He doesn't know if he can ever fully trust Ty again, no matter how much he wants to. In the barn, Ty is wide awake too. He sits on a bale of hay, elbows resting on his knees, hands clasped tightly together. He always imagined coming home, but not like this. Not with Amy looking at him like he's a ghost. Not with Nathan standing there, staking his own claim in the life Ty abandoned. That thought burns, but it's a fire he knows he'll have to endure if he ever hopes to find his way back. Nathan doesn't know the man personally, but he recognizes the type, someone who only steps in when everything has already fallen apart. Someone who waits for a woman to hit her lowest point before swooping in. Ty clenches his fists, fighting the urge to storm up to the house, demand answers, and set things right. But deep down, he knows the truth. He lost the right to demand anything the moment he walked away. Nathan, on the other hand, isn't burdened by guilt. He's furious. Pacing in his cabin, he replays every moment he shared with Amy, moments that felt like progress until Ty's sudden return shattered everything. Nathan knows Amy doesn't belong to him. He's never been naive enough to think she was completely over Ty. But after everything, after all the nights she cried in his arms, after all the times he was there when Ty wasn't, doesn't she feel something for him? And if she does, will she have the courage to admit it? Or will she fall back into old patterns, letting Ty remain the center of her world, no matter how much he's hurt her? The next morning, tension hangs heavy in the air. Amy tries to stick to her usual routine, feeding the horses, tending to Lindy, making breakfast, but nothing feels normal anymore. Everything feels off. Lindy is unusually quiet, her small hands clutching her mother's sweater as she watches Ty warily from across the room. Amy's heart aches. Lindy barely remembers her father. She was so young when he left. Amy wonders if that's a blessing or a curse. Lindy, Ty finally speaks, his voice hesitant, almost fearful. Hey, sweetheart? The little girl doesn't move at first, glancing up at her mother for reassurance. Amy swallows the lump in her throat and forces a smile. It's okay, honey. Lindy looks back at Ty, then cautiously takes a step forward. Ty kneels, his heart pounding. I missed you so much, he whispers. Lindy tilts her head, studying him, before finally reaching out to touch his face. Are you staying? Ty's breath catches. He glances at Amy, who's pretending to focus on the dishes in the sink. Yeah, he says, his voice thick with emotion. If you'll let me. Lindy nods, then surprises everyone by wrapping her arms around his neck in a tentative hug. Ty's eyes burn with tears as he holds her close, but when he looks up, he sees only uncertainty in Amy's eyes. Just as the moment begins to settle, Caleb walks in, and the fragile peace shatters. Caleb freezes when he sees Ty, his expression unreadable, but his posture stiff. There was a time when they were like brothers, inseparable, but that time is long gone. Caleb has spent years picking up the pieces Ty left behind, being the rock Amy could rely on. Now, Ty has the nerve to show up as if nothing happened. Amy notices Caleb's hands curling into fists. Caleb, she says quickly, stepping forward. Maybe we should, but Caleb cuts her off, his voice cold and sharp. No, I think I deserve to say something. His eyes lock onto Ty. You don't get to waltz back in here like you own the place. You don't get to pretend you didn't destroy people when you left. Ty tenses. I didn't. Yes, you did, Caleb interrupts, stepping closer. You think you can just show up and everything will go back to how it was? That Amy will forgive you? That Lindy will call you dad, like nothing ever happened? He shakes his head, disgust clear in his voice. You don't deserve them. Silence stretches between them, heavy with the weight of the truth. Ty doesn't argue or fight back because deep down, he knows Caleb is right. Amy stands frozen, caught between the past and the present, between the man she loved and lost and the man who's been by her side in his absence. She doesn't know what to say or feel. All she knows is that her world is crumbling, and she doesn't know how to stop it. Jack finally steps in, his voice heavy with authority. That's enough. His eyes flick between Caleb and Ty. This isn't about any of you. It's about Amy and Lindy and what's best for them. The room falls silent, but the damage is already done. Ty exhales slowly. I'll prove it, he says finally. I'll prove that I belong here. Amy's heart twists. She doesn't know if that's a promise he can keep, and worse, she doesn't know if she wants him to. Outside, Nathan watches from afar, his jaw tight. He knows Ty's return changes everything. If Amy isn't careful, it might just destroy her in the process. The weight of Ty's return lingers over Heartland like a storm cloud, casting uncertainty over everything Amy thought she knew. It's not just about him being back. It's about the ripple effect, the way his presence disrupts the fragile balance she fought so hard to maintain. Now, she's caught in the middle of a battle between the past and the future, between the man who broke her heart and the man who's been trying to mend it. Nathan knows it, and he's done pretending otherwise. He isn't the type to beg or sit back and let someone else take what he's been waiting for. He's given Amy space, time, and patience, but none of that matters now. Ty's return has thrown everything into chaos, and worst of all, Amy doesn't seem to have an answer. She won't tell him where she stands, won't tell him if Ty's return changes anything. Her silence is the loudest answer of all. He finds her near the pasture, brushing Spartan down as if it's the only thing keeping her from unraveling. She looks up when she hears his footsteps, her expression unreadable. He doesn't waste time on small talk. Tell me the truth, Amy. Her grip tightens on the brush, her body going rigid. Nathan. No, he interrupts, his voice firm. You owe me this. You need to tell me if I've been a fool this whole time, if I was just filling in the space until he came back. Amy exhales sharply, her heart pounding. She hates that she's the reason for the hurt in his eyes, but she can't lie to him. I don't know, she admits. It's not the answer he wants, nor the one she wants to give, but it's the truth. Nathan lets out a hollow laugh, shaking his head. That's it? After everything? I never promised you anything, Amy says softly, her voice barely above a whisper. You knew I wasn't ready. But I thought. Nathan cuts her off, his jaw tightening. Eventually, maybe you would be. I thought you felt something. But I guess I was wrong. Amy looks away, guilt burning in her chest. He wasn't wrong. She does feel something. But what does that even mean when her heart is still tangled up in the past? When one look at Ty makes everything inside her ache with memories she hasn't let go of. Nathan exhales sharply, stepping back. I can't do this, Amy. Not if you're just going to keep me waiting for something that's never going to happen. He walks away before she can respond, and Amy feels something inside her crack. She doesn't stop him because she doesn't know if she has the right to. As soon as she turns, she nearly collides with Ty. He's standing just a few feet away, his expression unreadable, but she can see it in his eyes. He heard everything. You don't have to do this, she says, her voice barely steady. Yes, I do, Ty replies quietly but firmly. I can't just stand back and let someone else take my place.